Week 14 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers this week. The first quarterback, Will Levis, the Tennessee Titans. So this week, a great matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. They give up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So Levis out there in 83% of fantasy leagues. In the last few weeks here for Levis, he's gone out there and he's putting up good numbers, 18 or more fantasy points 4 weeks in a row. Week 11 versus Minnesota, 295 pass yards, a touchdown, interception, 18 rush yards. Week 12 at Houston, 278 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, 10 rush yards, a fumble loss. In week 13 at the Commanders, 212 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, -3 rush yards. A lot of ball games where they had to play catch up. Obviously, one of the worst teams in the league, 3-9 on the season, is Tennessee. And a lot of ball games where it was garbage time as well. When obviously in the fourth quarter, these teams play prevent, have the backups in, but this week versus Jacksonville, that can't stop anyone all season long. I think Will Levis could go out there, and it wouldn't be surprising to me once again if he gets 18 or more fantasy points this week. So he's definitely a quarterback I have as a sleeper this week. Next quarterback, Derek Carr, the New Orleans Saints. Carr out there in 84% of fantasy leagues. I know the Saint receiving room and is decimated with Chris Olave. He's still out, most likely out for the season. Shaheed, they lost months ago. He's been out for the season and was a great deep ball threat. And now Taysom Hill tore the ACL last week and out for the season. But the last few weeks since he returned to the lineup from his own injury, week 9 at the Panthers, 236 pass yards, a touchdown. Week 10 versus Atlanta, a nice ball game, 269 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 rush yards. And week 11 versus Cleveland, 248 passing, 2 touchdowns. And last week, week 13 versus the Rams, 184 pass yards, a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, 12 rushing yards. He's getting at least 16 or more fantasy points is Derek Carr. I know they were home for the last 3 games. It was this New Orleans Saint team, and obviously they haven't traveled well this season, including a loss to the Carolina Panthers. Ricard, him and Valdez-Scantling, they have it going with that deep ball where it seems like weekly he's catching a big one for a touchdown. And Alvin Kamara, one of the best running back receivers out of the backfield. So I think this week versus the Giants, they give up the 19th most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. I know they're amongst the league leaders in sacks is this Giant DST, but I still believe Carr in deeper leagues can help fantasy owners. And like I say, he has that gunslinger mentality as well, where sometimes he's going to put up points and sometimes he's going to give up points. But he's definitely a consistent thrower of the football. And the last month of the season, since he returned, the numbers have been pretty decent. And the third and final quarterback I have as a sleeper is Cooper Rush of the Dallas Cowboys. So Cooper Rush, I thought he's filled in well once again for Prescott. We saw a few seasons ago the Cowboys were 5-1 with Rush on his center, and now he's got 4 starts under his belt. Is Cooper Rush. Week 10 versus Philly, 45 pass yards, 2 rush yards, 2 fumble losses. Week 11 versus Houston, went out in that game, garbage time, got him to 19 points, 354 passing, a touchdown, an interception, 2 rush yards. Week 12 at Washington, 247 pass yards, 2 touchdowns. And week 13 versus the Giants, 195 pass yards and a touchdown. So the Cowboys have won 2 games in a row. This week, Monday night, I believe it's going to be a high-scoring game with the Cincinnati Bengals coming to town. And the Bengals do give up the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. So Jake Ferguson, there's a real possibility he returns to the lineup, even though I thought Luke Schoonmaker has been a decent target. But to get Ferguson back, and they got Brandon Cooks back last week as well, scoring a touchdown, I think Russian deeper leagues possibly help fantasy owners. Because like I said, Cincinnati, they're giving up 35-plus points per game over the last month of the season. So Rush, while he's out there 93% of fantasy leagues, and if you're in a pinch at the quarterback position with injuries or buys, obviously with 6 teams on buys, especially in 2 quarterback leagues, I think Cooper Rush could be a decent sleeper option this week versus bad Bengal defense. That's a few quarterbacks I have as sleepers for week 14 of the fantasy football season.